Dobrý deň, vítam vás na webinári venovanom publikovaniu v časopisoch IOP Publishing pre Slovenskú akadémiu vied. Moje meno je Lucia Poledníková a zabezpečujeme vám ako Albertina Ikome Bratislava prístup k časopisom IOP Publishing a webinárom vás prevedie Emma Bartovský z IOP Publishing. It's your turn, Emma.
Thank you very much, Lucia, for the kind introduction. Good morning, and thank you very much for inviting me to speak to you today. Just to introduce myself, my name is Emma Bartovsky, and I'm the Senior Transformative Agreement Success Manager at IOP Publishing. So I work very closely with colleagues all around the business, but Daniel Lungu, who is the Regional Manager for covering your region, including Slovakia, has asked me to talk to you today about the open access agreement that you have in place since the beginning of January this year. So it's a pleasure to do so, and I'm going to cover a few points. I'm going to provide an introduction to our portfolio, just in case anyone wants to kind of know a little bit more about what kind of content we publish. Then I'm going to look at the transformative agreement and just cover some terminology around open access. We'll look closely at the Slovak Academy of Sciences. I've got a slide just to show you, what's happened since your agreement started so far. And then I'm just going to cover the benefits and a complete workflow for authors in terms of submitting a paper, what to expect once you've submitted that paper, in order to have it covered under the transformative agreement. Okay, so I'll move on to my introduction to IOP Publishing. So IOP Publishing is a society-owned publisher. Our head office is in Bristol in the UK, but we also have staff based all over the world, including in China, the USA, and Mexico. We're a wholly owned subsidiary of the Institute of Physics, which is a member society, and our net income goes directly to the Institute via gift aid, and that is assisting their mission to advance physics education and provide professional support for physicists across the globe. We publish just over 100 journals. About 60 of these are owned by IOP Publishing itself. The remaining are published in partnership with other societies and research organisations in the UK, in Europe, Asia, and the United States. Around a quarter of the journals that we publish are fully open access or gold open access titles. We have an ebooks programme which started 10 years ago, and in total we've published over 1,000 ebooks from authors worldwide. We also have 3 conference series titles which are some of the largest in the publishing space, and the publication of early stage research through these proceedings journals is really critical to our mission. Last year we published over 20,000 open access proceedings papers which represented conferences all over the world. We also have Physics World, which is our online science news platform, which represents a key part of our mission, again, to be able to communicate world-class research and innovation to the widest possible audience. So, as our name suggests, IOP Publishing began as a physics publisher, but our journals portfolio has expanded over the years into different subject areas, and we're now very much a multidisciplinary publisher across the physical sciences. We have a diverse range of journals which cover materials science, astronomy, astrophysics, bioscience, and environmental science and engineering. So here you can see an overview of some of the subject areas we publish in. And then to talk a little bit about some of our journal titles, hopefully some of which you might be familiar with. Last year, we published over 36,000 articles, and roughly 10% of these featured in the top 10% of cited research for the physical sciences. In the most recently updated Clarivate journal citation reports, 24 of our journals featured in the top quartile for their relevant subject category, and another 57 featured in quartiles 1 and 2. So this is a selection on this slide of some of our top tier journals with really competitive metrics for citations and download performance of published content. Among these is Reports in Progress in Physics, which is a venue for outstanding original research and reviews. This journal has an impact factor of 20.7 and a CITE score of 31. We have a growing fully open access environmental journals portfolio, which builds on our brand and prestige of our flagship title, Environmental Research Letters. Other highlights include Biofabrication, which is considered the leading journal in its field. We very much continue to expand this journal's portfolio into new research fields. For instance, last year we launched the world's first journal series, which was dedicated to machine learning and artificial intelligence in the sciences. So that was an introduction into our portfolio, which I very much hope you will go and learn more about on our website. Now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about open access and transformative agreements. So starting with a definition of what we mean by a transformative agreement. So it's a contract that's been negotiated between an institution or a group of institutions and a publisher that aims to transform the business model from one which is paying for subscriptions and reading access towards a model that is paying for both subscriptions and reading access, but also for article publication charges, so for publishing. And because it covers those two elements, that's why you'll often hear them referred to as read and publish agreements. And that's a really kind of simple way to think of what the agreement enables. So, and a few more terms that might help us to navigate open access. The model that most journals have traditionally used is the subscription model. And within that model, publishers and societies fund a journal, and the costs of that are supported by readers and their institutions, which is usually a university library, who purchases access to the content. In that model, authors are allowed to self-archive their accepted manuscript on a public repository, though there's often an embargo period in place. And that's referred to as green open access. All the way back in 2011, IOP Publishing transitioned all of our fully owned subscription titles to become hybrid journals. And that gave authors the option to be able to publish their articles open access within the framework of a subscription journal. Alongside this, we also have been growing the number of fully open access journals in our portfolio. As I mentioned, they're often referred to as gold open access journals. And in the gold model, the article publication charge is paid by the research funder, the author, or the librarian in case of a transformative agreement. So gold open access allows the version of record to be published and made freely available forever, usually under a Creative Commons license, referred to as a CC BY license. The article publication charges are covering areas such as our in-house peer review, research integrity services, editorial development, production and discovery costs. So our transition as a publisher to towards open access is predominantly happening through our transformative agreement programme. So this map here shows you the coverage of institutions and countries that we now have agreements in place with. So as you can see, it's over 1,000 institutions in more than 40 regions and countries around the world. And we're really happy to have Slovakia on the map for 2025. And this, the agreement with Slovak Academy of Sciences is currently our only agreement in Slovakia, but of course we hope to add more. Last year in 2024, we published 47% of all of our content was open access. So, we're at that critical, almost halfway point towards a open access transition. And as I mentioned, the transformative agreements are a really key driver of that transition. But another driver is our APC waivers and discounts programme, which is for researchers in low and middle income countries, which we're very proud of. And in 2024, we waived the article publication charge for 1,357 authors who were able to benefit from having either no or a heavily discounted APC. Okay, so I'm going to move on to just discuss specifically the agreement that we have in Slovakia. This is our dedicated support page for authors who are in Slovakia, and I'll show you how you can navigate to that from our website shortly. But we've put this in place for additional information so that authors can see what is available in Slovakia. So the good news is that corresponding authors can publish open access at no cost to themselves, and that's because the costs have been covered through the agreement with your library. The agreement that has been negotiated allows you to publish unlimited numbers of open access articles, and the authors do not need to pay the APC themselves. The agreement covers more than 70 journals, which includes both our gold open access titles and also our hybrid open access, our hybrid titles. And it allows read access, really importantly, to continue. So you should have read access to more than 100 journals on our platform, including the full archive back to 1874. So how do authors check whether they're covered by an agreement? So as I showed you previously, we've got that dedicated support page for Slovakia, which you can access from the publishing support section of our platform. And from there, authors can easily navigate to a page for their country and then see a clear list of all the eligible institutions, which obviously in this case is just the one at the moment. We also really recommend that authors talk to their library team, consult their library knowledge base. Those pages are usually updated with information that covers the full range of opportunities available across multiple publishers. So it's always a really good idea to check there. And we also have a great tool called the Journal Finder tool, which I'm going to show you on my next slide, how you can use that to see whether you're eligible. So we signpost our dedicated support page and our Journal Finder tool really prominently across our websites. It's on all of our eligible journals pages, and it's also on our submission system. So at the key points in your sort of author journey, you can access those tools to check. So authors who are actively looking for information should easily be able to find the resources that they need. A couple of important points. So to be eligible for the agreement, the corresponding author should be tied to the eligible institution, and the journal also needs to be an eligible journal. So there is an eligible journals list, which is linked from the Slovakia support page. So if you're using the Journal Finder tool, you're also able to include a journal in your search so that you can cross-reference and confirm that both the institution and the journal are eligible. You'll also see on this slide a definition of corresponding author. So it's the person that's listed at the time of submission and is responsible for communicating with the journal during the peer review and publication process. We do have checks in place to make sure that the corresponding author is also listed as the author to be contacted in the online publication. So it's important to think about who that corresponding author is going to be before you submit your paper, because it does need to remain consistent throughout the publication process and post-publication. So looking at the Journal Finder tool, this is a free to use tool, which is about checking funding eligibility. And as you can see, you can select institutions. You can also select funders. So if your research has been funded by a particular funding body, and you can also check that funding body to see whether whether a journal would comply with that funder's rules, and use this tool for both of those purposes. So on the on-screen example, I've included Slovakia Academy of Sciences in my search, and I've also included a journal which is nanotechnology, but you can also search for a keyword. So it doesn't have to be a journal that you're familiar with. If you just want to know what journals we publish in a particular area, then you can use the bar at the top of the page for a keyword search. So having added Slovakia Academy of Sciences into the search, I can then see at the bottom of the page that there is an agreement between this institution and IOP Publishing that does cover the cost of open access publishing in this journal. and then you can click directly through to the submission system using this submit article button. Just to show you a couple of places where we signpost this tool, this is our transformative agreement hub here, where we have lots of key information about agreements. And this area here, which I'm highlighting, is where you can see that list that I mentioned of all the countries that we have agreements with, and you can then dive into each country and see which institutions are covered. And up here, right at the top of the page, that's where you can access the journal finder tool. So if you just want to go straight in and look for your institution, then that's how you can do that. On this page, we also have a library resources area where librarians can download a toolkit to help them generate awareness of the agreement. There's an author guide, which is a step-by-step guide with screenshots. And actually, that's what I'm going to go through with in the latter section of this presentation. Okay, so now I'm moving on to a little bit of specific information about the agreement so far with Slovak Academy of Sciences. And obviously it's only been in place since January 2025, so it's very much early days within the agreement, but I thought it might be useful for you to see month by month what's happened so far. So we have 6 articles, sorry, I was just giving them a quick count, but 6 articles that have been accepted for publication across different journals. As you can see, 4 of those for superconductor science and technology. And those 6 articles have been made open access through the transformative agreement. So I think on my next slide, I've got an example of, yes, I have, of one of those articles. I just picked out a couple of examples because I wanted to show you where certain things are on the article page. So first of all, we have the flag at the top, which says that this article is open access. And then I've just highlighted this area here, which actually sits just underneath the article PDF download, but this is where we have the drop down for the authors that were involved in the paper. And as you can see in this case, the corresponding author is Martin Plesch, who is based at Slovak Academy of Sciences. So there should always be that kind of ability to look at the paper and see who the corresponding author is. And also I just thought I would point out that we have this article metrics section on every single article that we publish. And this is where we're tracking things like downloads, but also this is the sort of altmetric donor. I'm not sure if you'll be familiar with this, but this is a kind of indication really of how many times this article has been mentioned across a variety of sources on the web, including social media, patents, news articles. So it's really all about the attention that's been garnered by this article that's been published. I think I also have another example just to kind of highlight a couple. I mean, this is an example from again a different author this time, but someone else who's been able to take advantage of publishing open access. Again, we have the open access flag and the article metrics. So just a couple of nice examples really to show you that the agreement is already underway and having an impact for authors. And here I've just highlighted the altmetric information which I mentioned. So here we can see that the journal itself on their social media kind of venue, I think it's X, yeah, they are promoting the article and they've been able to say that it's open access, which is really great because it means it gives, again, that instant flag that it's available to anyone to read and it can be picked up and retweeted or re-X'd. So really great to see. And I kind of that leads me into the section where I'm talking about why you should consider publishing open access and what the benefits are for authors. So as we've just looked at, we really encourage authors to publish open access if there is an agreement in place, because we know that it can result in increased exposure and impact, which we measure through a growth in downloads and citations for articles. we've actually done some analysis and had a look at the impact that publishing open access has on downloads and citations, which I'm going to share with you on the next slide. But as well as that, we know that open access expands scientific equality. It takes down barriers that are usually in place when publishing behind a paywall. The public can immediately access research, and authors can comply with an ever-expanding list of funder requirements. So currently our agreements allow authors to comply with all funder mandates as they provide immediate gold open access with a CC BY license. And I know that there's a national strategy for open science in Slovakia. So obviously you're moving towards, requirements and funder sort of mandates in that area. So it's really good to know that this agreement complies with that. So in terms of those benefits that I mentioned, and the difference that we've seen on our own portfolio of journals. So here we were comparing open access articles with non-open access articles within the same journal. And it was really important to do that to minimize any differences for subject area and reach between different journals. For instance, we know that environmental science tends to be more read and more cited than mathematical sciences. So we wanted to eliminate the difference that occurs between journals and subject areas. So again, just looking at articles within the same journal, what we found is that open access articles had a 70% higher download rate than non-open access articles. And citations, there was also an impact on citations. It's not as great as the one that we see for downloads, but even so, we found that articles that were published at open access had a 15% higher citation rate. And then when it came to article mentions, which were those kind of donuts that we were just looking at for Altmetric, we found that there was a 19% uplift for open access articles compared to non-open access articles in the same journals. So the figures are really compelling in terms of the uplift that authors can potentially get if their research is published on an open access basis. As well as this, all of our transformative agreements publishing is done under that CC BY license. Currently, the 4.0 license, which is the one that's most aligned with the principles of open access and supports liberal reuse rights whilst retaining the copyright for the author. And it goes without saying that all of our open access publishing is subject to the exact same high quality peer review and production standards that we run across our entire journal portfolio. So now we're moving into this section where I'm going to talk you through the workflow. So in its very simplest form, this is the kind of like bird's eye view of the workflow. Author submits a manuscript to an eligible journal. IOP Publishing identifies the article as eligible and informs the corresponding author that they can publish under a transformative agreement. Authors then sign a CC BY license. That's really critical because without that license being signed, we are unable to publish the article open access. But once we've received the signed license and obviously the article is accepted for publication, then we go ahead and publish the article open access. So, of course, I'm now going to show you that in a bit more detail and using some of the screenshots that have come from our submission system, Scholar One. So when an author's ready to start their submission, they follow steps 1 to 4 on our submission system. And but the majority, well, for all of our IOP-owned titles, that submission system is Scholar One. There are a few partner journals that are eligible for our transformative agreements that use different submission systems, but the sort of the process is essentially the same. It's just I'm just showing you the steps in Scholar One because it's our most common submission system. So steps 1 to 4 go through things like the author includes their article title, they add any associated files and keywords for their article. And then at step 4, the corresponding author is asked to state their affiliation clearly on the submission form. So as the corresponding author, your name and your ORCID ID will automatically be populated in the submission. It will use the information that's held in your Scholar One account. So if you want to make changes, you can, and we recommend that you do make changes in your Scholar One account, because that will then pull through into your submissions. But if you see that this information is pulling through using old information, you can also update it here within the submission itself by selecting actions, and then you can choose an edit option. So the affiliation field here is auto-populated, and what that means is that when you start to type your institution name, it brings you back the options that are available for you to select. And that's institutional matching that's working in the background of that field is using Ringgold institutional identifiers. That has huge coverage across the institutional kind of the global institutional index. But if for any reason you're not able to choose from the list of Ringgold matched institutions, you can type into that field as free text. But we do recommend that you do try to select a Ringgold matched institution, because that will really help us identify the paper more easily for TA funding. We also use fuzzy logic to pick up any misspelled institution names. So, we are sort of doing our best to try and catch your paper. At step 6, you'll see the options for publishing open access. So this screenshot here is giving you the typical options for a hybrid journal. So if you're covered by a transformative agreement, you can choose the standard rate here. And up at the top of this page, you'll see that we've signposted the journal finder tool and also our dedicated support pages here on our website. We obviously recommend that authors run a quick check of their agreement before they make this open access choice. But if you're confident that your agreement, that you're choosing an eligible journal that's that you've checked is eligible, then there's no reason why you wouldn't choose the standard rate here. However, if you select no for any reason, perhaps you're not fully confident, or you just we know that there are a lot of authors who are not necessarily aware when they're submitting their paper that there is a transformative agreement in place. Perhaps they miss this information about checking and they just select no here. What we say is, don't worry, because we do still run those identification processes. And so we will pick up, if we have papers from corresponding authors at Slovak Academy of Sciences, we will pick those papers up and we will still contact those authors to let them know that they can publish open access under the agreement. I've got another slide which just shows the typical, the selection choices for publishing in our gold journals. Obviously here there is no option to publish behind the paywall. There's just the standard rate and any other discounts that might be available. So here, of course, authors would choose the standard rate. And again, we do write to eligible authors to let them know that they can publish under a transformative agreement once we've identified those papers. So in terms of keeping authors updated, this is the email that we write to those authors when we let them know. And we email the corresponding author and inform them that they can be included in the agreement. The subject line is open access options for your article, and it will include the article reference ID. And this email is usually sent during the peer review process. The email includes lots of links for further information, so there's plenty of ways to find out more. And then the last stage is receiving the signed copyright form. So the CC BY license has some really distinct benefits for authors. It allows them to retain the copyright of their paper, gives them the right to be credited and cited as authors of the work, and it also has reuse rights attached to it, which allow everyone to have a right to distribute, adapt, and build upon the work, which is crucial to the advancement of science. This video here is a fairly short video explainer, and it just gives some more information about the benefits, but also goes through how to sign the CC BY license. And it's available on our TA playlist, which is on YouTube, but also it's available on the author guide from the TA Hub. Okay. So because we want as many authors as possible to benefit from the agreement, and we also know that in the early days of new agreements, we sometimes hear that authors are unsure or they have misunderstandings, which can lead them to opting out of open access. So we've put together some information to try and dispel some of the common myths that we hear, and we've included this information on our website as well. So the key thing is authors tell us that they want to opt out. When authors tell us that they want to opt out, we always contact the librarian. So in this case, if we hear anything from a Slovak Academy of Sciences author, we'll contact the librarian to let them know. And that's because we find that the libraries, first of all, they want to know that information, but also they're often really well placed to reassure authors about the agreement and to kind of cover some of these myths that we see. So just a little bit of information for librarians, some things that you can do to ensure your agreement is communicated within the research community. We have this library toolkit, which you can download. It's got ready-made resources, email templates, posters, and we really encourage institutions as well to register their agreement on the ESAC registry, which is a global database of agreements. And we know that that information from the ESAC registry feeds tools like the Journal Checker tool, which is run and managed by Plan S. So if authors are using the Journal Checker tool, it's a really good idea to make sure that your agreement's listed there. As I mentioned, it's a really good idea as well to update your library pages with details of the agreement, because this is often the first place that authors go when seeking information. In terms of reporting, we send quarterly reports of all the articles that have been published by Slovak Academy of Sciences. They will be going to a dedicated person within the library, and these contain a full list of the articles and metadata for those articles, such as the author, title, journal name, acceptance date, etc. We're also a partner of OA Switchboard for their Reporting Made Easy service. This is an independent intermediary which enables academic institutions to monitor information relating to their open access research outputs via a central information hub. So if you're participating in the Reporting Made Easy service, you'll be able to use it to report on IOP Publishing's articles as well. Okay, so the last section now is just a little bit of information about why you should choose IOP Publishing for your next research paper. Okay, so as I mentioned at the beginning, we're a society publisher, which means that we don't operate to make a profit, and we're very much embedded in the research community. We've got more than 900 editorial board members and board members in Europe. So those board members are helping us to shape the direction and the research landscape of the journals that we publish. All of our peer review is done in-house by our team of experts who select peer reviewers for each and every paper. We have several initiatives that we've launched over the last few years to address some of the challenges and to make improvements in peer review. One of those is our double anonymous peer review, which we brought in a few years ago across our portfolio. This is where the reviewer and the author identities are concealed in order to reduce bias with respect to things like gender, race, country of origin, or affiliation. And we hope that this will lead to a more equitable peer review system. As well as our in-house editorial teams, we also have a team of 6 experts who are working in research and integrity, which is a really important issue facing the industry at the moment. This specialist research integrity team implement preventative measures, conduct training sessions for colleagues. They raise investigations in response to allegations across our portfolio. So we feel that we've got a good handle on research and integrity issues and are in some ways leading the way in terms of making improvements in this area. So we know that the success of peer review depends on really careful critical examination of research. but also we know that early career researchers are often asked to peer review without any formal training. And that's why in September 2020, we launched a peer review training and certification programme to try and bridge the gap. This programme offers a mix of online workshops, which are hosted by experienced reviewers, and digital learning for researchers to work through in their own time. It's all free and available to anyone who wants to use it. So far, we've had 4,000 people registered for the training certification, and we've awarded more than 14,000 reviewers with our trusted reviewer status that demonstrates exceptional peer review competency. We're really working hard to try and train the next generation of peer reviewers. And as I mentioned, this is all free. So we would recommend, if you're interested in brushing up or learning more about peer review, then please do have a look at those links or pass them to anyone else in your institution who may benefit. We've also got an early career researchers hub, which is a useful space for people to find information. All sorts of information is available here. Things like how to structure your paper, how to improve your impact post-publication. We've got lots of advice, tips, recommendations, and also some tools that authors can use. So would definitely recommend having a look at this page. Okay, and that brings me to the end of the presentation. So if you're here and you want to ask a question, then please do. Also, if you're watching this recording later, then here's some email addresses that you can use to follow up. If you want to ask me a question, then this email address here is my sort of shared inbox with colleagues. So that one, if you email that one, I can answer that one straight away. And if you think of anything later on that you want to ask, then of course, please do. So otherwise, I'll hand back to Lucia.
I think that for now we can close the webinar.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for organising it.
Ďakujem veľmi pekne